Dhruv. Hi, Reeth. Okay, cool. So with that, I'm going to begin. So first of all, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today for this webinar on freedom from addictions. So the first thing that I want to just talk about is how an addiction, like what exactly is an addiction? Now, an addiction is essentially a habit pattern, any activity where we are repeatedly engaging in self-destructive behavior, either knowingly or unknowingly. Either we are aware of the kind of self-destructive behavior that we're doing, or we are not aware of it, you know. So how many of you today who are present here are aware of some, addictions that you have in your life? So type me if that's you, like if you know that you have some addictions, and if you are one of those blessed beings who have no addictions in life, say self-realized, So I just want to see what's the kind of split we have in the group today. Okay, Mandira says me, Rajni says me, Brunda says me. Okay, Jayesh says me. Cool. So before we dig in, maybe I would also like to get a sense of what are the kind of addictions that you people have noticed in yourself. It's like what are the kind of addictions that you would like to get over? So if you could just all of you who have sent messages saying me, okay, you could just let me know what exactly is it that you would like to get free from as well. So Mandira says smoking, Rajneesh says coffee. Okay, what else do we have? I would like to get to know a little bit from everyone else as well, so that, okay, Aryan says, my brain wants to quit weed, but my heart is not ready to say bye. Cool, interesting. Okay, what about the others? It'd be very useful to know what exactly you want to attain from this. Okay, Savi says, addiction to your session. Okay. Sumita says social media. That's a big one. A lot of people deal with. Smoking and emotional habits like people pleasing. Okay, nice that people noticing this. Phone addiction, that's a really big one. Yes. And all right, cool. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing all of these things that you would like to get rid of. So broadly speaking, like we can classify addictions into, substance addictions and behavioral addictions. Okay. Now, substance addictions are things like smoking, alcohol, drugs, coffee, food, all of these things would fall into that category. And behavioral addictions is like, like using TV too much, or being addicted to watching things on Netflix, or like being addicted to your phone, being addicted to gambling, being addicted to sex, or like some people are addicted to their work to the detriment of their personal health and life and shopping. And if you might have noticed, like I've put food in actually two categories. Food is there in the substance addiction as well, and it's also there in behavioral addiction, because one of the things that we often don't realize is food is probably one of the biggest addictions that we are dealing with in our life. And most people, almost all people that I can think of, are actually addicted to food. And the only way we can realize how addicted we really are is when we try to change our patterns of behavior. In fact, from my point of view, I would say food addictions are actually sometimes, even actually in most cases, are even stronger than things like, alcohol addiction or smoking addiction. Because once you decide to stop smoking, I've seen that actually a lot of people are able to like let go of it much quickly as compared to when you try to say take a break from say eating food for 10 days or 15 days. And what you will realize is that let's say if you want to do like a juice cleanse or something, no, it's like what you would notice is that food actually has very strong cravings. But coming to the main point, which is about these addictions, like why do we actually even have all of these addictions? Well, one of the thing that I want you to understand is that the core of the addiction is actually resting in our feelings, like how are we actually feeling. And all of these addictions that we are suffering from are a way to improve our feelings. Now, what do I mean by that? So first, before I even get into this whole understanding of our feelings and how they are the key to our addictions, let me share a little study with you that was done. Okay. So I forgot the name of the scientist who did this, but they did this experiment with rats where they would keep these rats in these cages, and they had two options for drinking water. It's like there would be one dispenser which had just water, and there was another dispenser which had like water laced with cocaine or heroin. I don't know which one, but either way, so it had like two options, like two dispensers for water. And what would happen is when you had these rats living in these cages, like as soon as the rats figured out that, okay, hey, I can get this water laced with, say, heroin or cocaine, like the rats would just completely ignore the normal water and just consistently go for the heroin laced water, to the extent where they would stop eating all food, they would lose all their muscle mass, they would lose all their physical attributes, and they would eventually starve to death. But now here's the thing, okay? And so this study was done, and then for a lot of time, like people thought about addictions as like this uh, like really physical thing that is happening in your biochemical systems of your body. But the interesting thing is that when a scientist decided to create a rat heaven, a rat paradise, where what he did is he created the most beautiful ecosystem that a rat can possibly desire. He designed an ecosystem where the rats could have like a really good company. They could like engage with other rats. They could have all of this stimulating behavior, like that would stimulate their mind, that would have these puzzles for them to solve, and they could interact with all of these other rats. And it was a very rich, beautiful ecosystem that was created for rats. What they noticed is that almost always all of the rats would let go of their addiction to the heroin laced water and stop using it. Now, for how many of you this like really opened your mind? So type MO for mind opening. Okay. So Brunda says mind blown. Okay. So the thing is, you must understand the reason the rats in the original, experiment were getting completely addicted to the cocaine and the heroin laced water was because those rats were living in really horrible conditions. By that, they were living in cages, like in a lab, you know, and they were not living their natural life. And because of that, like the heroin and the cocaine laced water was an upgrade to their awful living conditions. Like, obviously, nobody likes to live in a cage, neither does a rat, nor does a chicken, but they're just forced to live in those conditions. And when they got to live in rat paradise, which is that they got to do everything that the rat would possibly desire to do in its life, then that cocaine laced water was not an upgrade anymore, but rather it was a downgrade. And which is why the rats would invariably completely let go of this cocaine or heroin water, because they have all of these other things that they can do which are far more engaging, far more rewarding, and far more uplifting. Okay. So the same thing is true with human beings as well. Now, while the rats in the experiments were living in cages, what we must understand is that as human beings in our current modern society, we are also often trapped in our own cages. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, often many of us are living in apartments, we're living in very unnatural living conditions where there is not enough stimulation for our body and for our mind and our soul. Like we are not interacting with enough people, we are not having enough number of genuine connections, we are not exercising our body, we are not stimulating our physical organism, because we were living like the original way in which humans were meant to live was like groups of chimpanzees, like tribes of monkeys, like we were supposed to be living in a tribe. And when you're living in a tribe, like you have connection with a vast ecosystem where you are connected to like lots and lots of people, and you're living out in the open, you're climbing trees, you're running, you're jumping, you're laughing, you're giggling, you're making jokes, and you have a very rich life. But unfortunately, the reason a lot of people struggle with many different kinds of addictions in our current modern lifestyle is that we have become disconnected from this way of living life. And what has happened is instead of living in a vibrant, thriving community or in a very beautiful tribe, we are living in isolation. Like we live in small boxes with a few people, and even those few people, like probably I've seen, like how many of you have seen like a bunch of people go to a restaurant and everyone's engaged on their phone and they're not even actually sitting and having a conversation with each others. The same thing repeats in households as well, unfortunately, many times. And what is happening is, as a human species, we are just going from one box to the next box. Like people live in apartments, they sit in their car, they go to their office, and each one is just a cubicle or a box. And so we are missing out on life. And as a result of that, all of these addictive patterns that we have give us a sense, give us a feeling of feeling better because our normal state of operating is so low. Okay. For how many of you this concept makes complete sense? Like if it makes sense, type MS. If you're unclear, just type unclear and I will explain it in more detail. Okay. So Jayesh says makes sense. All right. So that's the first thing, which is the kind of life that we're living right now. Now, the next key idea that I want you to understand is that, as I said, the feeling is the key. Like it is essentially to improve our feelings that we are engaging in this kind of behavior. Now, what happens is when people are deeply lost in the security center. Now, what do I mean by security center? It's essentially when our mind is creating so much turbulence for us, when our mind is creating so much struggle for us, where constantly we are having thoughts of worry, anxiety, fear, and we're constantly worried about all the things that could go wrong. Like, things that can go wrong in my office, things that could go wrong in my house, like a project that I'm trying to do. And when our mind is bombarding us with all of these potential problems, that is when our energy is at the lowest level. Our frequency is at the lowest level, which is security. Now, from security, sensation is actually an upgrade. So, for a person, who is deeply stressed out about their work, well, smoking a cigarette or eating a donut is actually a very pleasurable activity. They get a lot of relief from, say, eating that donut or smoking a cigarette. Like for how many of you can relate to this like idea? Like if you can relate to it, type relatable, or just say RB in short for relatable. So, like you notice how when your energy is so low because of all these bombardment of like negative thoughts, of all these thoughts of like how things can go bad, in that moment, a smoking a cigarette or eating a cookie or having a coffee is actually giving you temporary relief. Like it's actually a very soothing, calming sensation compared to being bombarded with all this negative thoughts. Okay. So that is the very first thing that we want to understand. It is not that we are engaging in senseless, mindless activities. It is always we are trying to improve our feelings. It is just that in this moment, if our feelings are so low that even smoking a cigarette and eating a cookie is actually making us feel better. Okay. Now, the next thing that I want you to understand, which is this is a very, very key point to understand, okay, which is the opposite of self-love is actually self-destruction. And one of the biggest reasons why people engage in a whole lot of counterproductive activity, the reason why people engage in this self-destructive behavior, such as smoking, drinking, eating unhealthy foods, is because at some level, at a subconscious level, what we are doing is we are trying to slowly commit suicide. Like just observe, when you look at people smoking, like you will notice that, like, if you actually, if you talk to them, and if you're someone yourself, who's smoking cigarettes, I think Mandira mentioned over here that, like you're currently dealing with like smoking as a issue. Like when you start deeply observing your own thought patterns, what you will notice is at some level, at a, where you're thinking, like you would see yourself, like, as unworthy of your own love. Like at some level, you are seeing yourself as a bad person, or like, like you don't approve of yourself. You don't love and nourish yourself. And when that happens, like, when you don't love yourself, what we end up doing is we slowly start destroying ourselves. And different people choose different pathways in order to destroy themselves. But the core reason is the same. Whether somebody is destroying themselves by eating a lot of junk food, or somebody is smoking too many cigarettes, or somebody is taking drugs, or whatever it may be, we engage in this behavior because of a lack of self-love. Now, for how many of you this makes sense? Type MS if this makes sense. Okay, wonderful. Now, why do we not love ourselves? Well, we don't love ourselves because of faulty programming, you know. Because you see, when we are born as babies, we are perfectly lovable. Like, you see, when we first came to this planet as a small baby, well, we didn't have to do anything in order to earn love or in order to become lovable. Like nobody expects a baby to, like, make money or drive a car or, pass some exam or do something that, that will let them approve of this baby and be like, okay, cool, you're a good baby. And, it's like, I accept you and approve of you. Yeah. Uh, but they're perfectly lovable as they are. But what happens is, as we start growing up, as we start going through different phases of life, and we live with parents and, elders, and what happens is, over the course of our lifetime, there is a whole host of people who start poking holes at us, like, start making us feel bad for who we are. And this happens over a long period of time, like, right from, say, when we're a couple of years old, all the time till we're like young adults and probably even later. And all of this faulty program starts getting internalized in our head. And what we end up doing is we start internalizing the voices of criticism that, like, that our parents did to us, that our teachers did to us, that our society did to us. We start internalizing that voice of criticism into ourselves. Because you see, as human babies, we're very dependent on our elders for our survival. It's like a self-defense mechanism where over time, like before our elders can be displeased with us, we will modulate our own behavior. And what happens is that over a course of, like, 10, 20 years, we receive so much negative conversation from so many different places that we end up becoming our own worst critic. Like, we start criticizing ourselves more than anyone else criticizes us anymore, because everyone who's over here in this conversation, like, like, I'm sure you're all adults over here. Now, how many of you realize, like, in this moment, that there is nobody else in your life who criticizes you as much as you criticize yourself? Like, if you notice this about yourself, type me. Like, if you realize that, if anyone else actually spoke to you the way you spoke to yourself, you would probably punch them in the face. Like, if anyone criticized you every moment of the day for everything that you're doing, like if they spoke to you the way you talk to yourself, like you would definitely punch them in the face. Like, you would not tolerate such behavior from these people. But the problem is, because we are not able to run away from ourselves, like, your inner critic, your voice in the head, does not go anywhere. It's like whether you go to the Himalayas, you go to another country, you buy a new apartment, you go for a vacation, you go to the spa, whatever you may do, wherever you may go, you are always with you. And so there is no escape. And unfortunately, because of that, we have started to accept and tolerate this very, very counterproductive behavior of criticizing ourselves to, I don't know, to hell or something. Now, this is not the way we need to be. We are not doomed to be like this. We can actually change this characteristic about ourselves, which is actually one of the main reason for having this webinar series, the Expand Love webinar series, is so that we can learn to love ourselves. And only when we can truly learn to love and accept ourselves can we actually give genuine love to somebody else. Because the way love works is it has to overflow from you. You cannot truly give love to somebody else if you don't learn how to love yourself. Neither can you learn to accept love from somebody else if you don't love yourself. Because when at a subconscious level, when you think of yourself as being unlovable, like if somebody else loves you, you will either doubt them or you will judge them, or in some way or the other, you will distance them from your life because it doesn't sit with your story of yourself. Okay. Now, this is a deep concept. I know it'll take some time for it to like really sink in, but yeah. So does it make sense so far? If it makes sense, type MS, or if you have any questions at this point, I'd be happy to create a bit more clarity as well. Okay, cool. If it makes sense to everyone, then I will go ahead. And at the end, I will open it up for question and answers. Okay, Savi says not making sense. Go ahead, Savi. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, cool. If you don't have the question yet,
I am not able to link these things. So I'm just waiting till the end, and then maybe the link will happen.
Okay, cool. Anyways, at the
Yeah.
end, we open it up for Q&A and then we can
Yeah,
have
I
the.
just want to listen fully there before I ask the questions. Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Cool. My pleasure. Okay. Now, on this note, as I was telling you before, that the feeling is the key, so one of the ways in which we can let go of our addictions is by elevating our feelings. And as I said, when we are deeply stuck in the security center, sensation is an upgrade. Like, it is better than being in security. So when we are living very, very stressful lives, when we're having an awful time, like then eating, drinking, whatever, like, all of that actually helps us improve our life. But the way we can actually free ourselves from the dependency on things like smoking, on drinking, on eating donuts and cookies, and like eating junk food and engaging in all of this junk behavior, such as like phone addictions and all of these things, is by actually upgrading our energy level. Okay, so okay, before I even talk about this, I think I should clarify a little bit more when I'm talking about upgrade. Okay, so when I'm talking about upgrades and I'm talking about energies, what I mean is like at a very, like from a very physics point of view. Like what I mean is that every emotion has a frequency. Okay, and so the range of emotions that we exhibit has a frequency spectrum. So when we are having negative emotions such as guilt, shame, remorse, fear, stress, anxiety, these emotions have a very low frequency, right? And these frequencies can also be measured. There are actually tools that exist in the world today that can measure these frequencies, that can measure our emotions. And as our emotions start to elevate, and as we start operating on emotions such as like joy, happiness, enthusiasm, excitement, pleasure, bliss, ecstasy, all of these things, so they have a much higher frequency. Okay, so that is what I mean by elevating. So when we are naturally operating at the lowest frequencies, all of these addictions actually help us upgrade and move up our frequency. But when we start operating as a baseline on frequencies which are much higher than the frequency that we can achieve by smoking a cigarette or by eating a donut, then what would happen is naturally those habits will drop out of your life, because you will start to notice that that is actually a downgrade and not an upgrade anymore. Okay, because when you start operating on frequencies of love, and when I say love, I don't just mean that you have to love yourself or you're in love with your partner or something like that. Love could also be like your work can be an expression of your love. For example, if you're doing something that you genuinely love doing, like you get immersed in the doing of that thing, and you might become so immersed that you forget to even eat your lunch. You might forget everything else. Like for how many of you have ever had this experience that you are so immersed in a certain activity that everything else just fell out of your awareness, like you forgot everything else, and you were just completely involved in the work that you're doing, right? So Jayesh says me. So like everyone has this experience. Now, the opposite of this experience is boredom, right? Uh, when boredom occurs, like when you're bored, it's like because you don't know where to put your energy, and that is when you want to, like you start looking at Swiggy, you start thinking about eating some chips, and you start thinking about like smoking this or doing that and all of that stuff. So it's a question of where your energy is at right now. Okay, and once we are able to consistently upgrade our energy from the lower centers, such as security, all the way up to like love, where imagine a state of existence where everything in your life is happening lovingly. Like imagine for a moment a state of existence where you wake up in the morning and you're like excited for your day. You're really excited to do all the things that you have decided to do today. You're looking forward to them, and you have a healthy self image. You love and respect yourself, and you go about your day. You start doing stuff. Every task you do, you feel a sense of accomplishment, and you feel a purpose, and you feel fulfillment in what you're doing. And as you live your day, you get charged and energized by the work that you're doing. And by the end of the day, you're not tired, but you feel very good about yourself. And when you go to bed, you just fall asleep. For how many of you this sounds like a very beautiful way of experiencing life? It doesn't just have to be an imagination. Your life can be like that. And the main point of freedom from addictions is that when your life is like that, all of the addictions will just naturally fall away. Like there will be no need for them anymore. So I'll tell you a story, it's like of how, because one of the people in the presentation, like in the beginning, mentioned that about their connection with cannabis, it's like, and they said that they would like to let go, but currently they are in a space where they feel like, oh, maybe I don't want to just yet. So you see, there was a time when I used to also smoke weed, and it just happened, it's like it happened in college, and I started smoking up. And at that time, it was a very pleasurable experience. Like I would really enjoy smoking up, and I would like, watch some anime or something. And then I would buy a lot of munchies, and I would like eat them and watch something and have a really good time. But as time went on, what happened is I just started, living in places where I was always surrounded by people who were smoking up. It's like, and so there came a point in my life where I didn't have to do anything. Like I didn't have to like go get it, roll it, or whatever. Like, I just have to exist. And somebody next to me will just roll a joint, and then they just pass it on to me. And I just have to smoke it and then pass on the joint. And that became my life, for some time. And the way I actually got over smoking up was when I actually upgraded my life. And what happened was that as I started to eat only fruits, and as I started to like work out, and I started doing a whole lot of things, what happened is that like I also started to work on my mind. I started to constantly improve the way my mind works. And as a result of eating really good food, having a lot of energy, working out and upgrading my mind, what happened is that my baseline of life experience became so good. Like it became like so, like I would be like so full of energy, like so enthusiastic for everything all the time. Like if you ask me something, I'd be like, yeah, sure, let's go, bro. Like I would be like, yes, right now, there's no delay in my life. Like I would be up for everything. And then what I noticed is that in that energetic space, every time I would smoke a joint, I would actually feel down and not high. Like after smoking the joint, I would actually feel lazy and lethargic. And like while just 10 minutes ago, I was like absolutely ready to do anything. Like just 10 minutes, 5 minutes after smoking the joint, like if somebody asked me something, be like, Vishnu, you want to go there, do this thing? I'd be like, not really. Like I would rather lie down. And it's just that this happened a bunch of times, and I realized like, what the hell? Like, why am I even smoking up? What is it doing for me? Like, it is not adding any value to my life. It is only deteriorating the quality of my life experience. And it just dropped away. Like, I didn't have to fight it. I didn't have to say no. I didn't have to do anything. The only thing that happened was I worked on improving the quality of my life. Like, in every aspect that I could imagine a better way of living, I did something in order to make my life better. And as a result, all these other habits which were not serving me just fell off. because I started to notice that they were just deteriorating the quality of my life and not upgrading it anymore. Okay. For how many of you this makes sense? Like, how this works out. If it makes sense, type MS. If not, I can clarify a little bit more. Okay, cool. Now, the next really powerful way to move from, say, the lower energetic spaces to a higher energetic space is a shift in focus, right? And when you are able to shift your focus from the self to service, there is a huge, huge transformation that I can guarantee you that you would experience in your life. Now, what do I mean by shifting focus? You see, what I noticed is that a lot of people, like their whole, ideology, their whole thought process is completely self-oriented. Like, how can I benefit? What's in it for me? How can I get this? Like, or they're thinking about their own health. They're thinking about, their kidney or their liver, or they're thinking that, oh, my head hurts, or if I'm having this problem, that problem. And every thought that they have is only about themselves. And you see, the law is that where attention goes, energy flows. We live in an energetic universe. I don't want anyone to be confused. I don't want anyone to just, be caught in the illusion that just because you look at a material world, just because it looks like we are living in a material reality, we don't, like, it's not like we live in an energetic universe. Like every thought, every emotion, every physical object also has its own vibratory signature. It has its own frequency. Like a chair that you're sitting on might seem solid, but it has vibrating molecules and atoms. And that is the nature of the world that we're in. And wherever your attention goes, energy flows. And now the thing is, when people are in a state of consciousness where they're completely focused and completely, thinking about only themselves, what happens is, unfortunately, that their energy tends to stagnate in the body. It doesn't really flow. And as that energy stagnates, it actually also starts to cause dis-ease, which is just not having ease in your life. And because energy, like water, does not like to stagnate, it likes to flow. And when we are able to shift our focus from ourselves to service, then our body becomes a channel, a conduit of energy. And cosmic energy can flow into us and flow out of us. And that ways we can serve the whole. And when that happens as well, and when energy starts to constantly flow and pass through you, like you naturally tend to feel much better. And as I said in the previous slides, as you feel better, you automatically become free from your addictions. And thus, shifting your focus from yourself to service is also a very, very powerful method of healing yourself and freeing yourself from any addictions that you might actually have. Now, the next really important concept that I have for you is the relationship between the self image and the subconscious. Okay. Now, like if you have not thought about these two, like for how many of you have actually never really thought about your self image? Like if this is the first time you're coming across this idea, type FT for first time, so that I know that, if this is the first time you're coming across the idea of like self-image. Okay, Brinda says FT, Josephine says FT. Okay, cool. So this is actually a very, very powerful concept. It's a very, very important concept to understand, which is, you see, your subconscious mind and your subconscious system is actually one of the most powerful systems of computation that exists in the whole universe. like you right now in this moment that you're listening to, like, are already a genius. Like you already have access to the most advanced computational system. It is already capable of doing things that most people cannot even imagine. Like in this moment, right now, all of you are controlling your kidney, liver, pancreas. You're controlling the metabolism of every cell in your body. You are constantly coordinating between 100 trillion cells within your body. You're operating your digestive system, you're operating your lymphatic system, and you're operating like dozens and dozens of systems in your body right now as you're listening to this presentation. Now, all of that is being done by your subconscious system. So I want you all to understand that your subconscious system is already a genius. Like if this makes sense to you, type I am a genius in the chat, because you already have access, you already have a system that is serving you, that is way beyond any supercomputer that currently exists on the planet. Even the best supercomputer on the planet right now cannot turn a banana into you, but you are doing that. Like you are creating new cells right now. As you're listening to this presentation, there are cells that are dying in your body, and there are new cells which are being created in your body. In this moment, as you're listening to this presentation, you are controlling and like navigating and using dozens and dozens of systems in your body. Now, but the thing is that this genius system that you have, that you're referring to as your subconscious mind, is actually controlled and in line, rather, in line with your self image. Now, what do I mean by your self image? Well, each and every one of you has a conception of who you really are. Like each and every one of you has an idea of what you are. Like, am I a good person? Am I a lazy person? Am I a hardworking person? I like to exercise. I don't like to exercise. I enjoy eating. I don't care much about food. Like, I'm a horny person. Like, oh, I'm a very lovable person. Or like, I'm a hardworking person. I'm a good student. I'm a bad student. I hate school. I love school. Like all of these different ideas are a part of your self image. Now, whatever self image that you have, your subconscious system will support. Okay, now this is the really, really key point to understand. Now, it is not that the subconscious, like you see, when you go to school, for example, like the questions that you might solve in your maths paper, like even the most complicated questions, like if it might be some quadratic equation or differential equation or calculus or geometry or whatever it may be, well, for your subconscious system, that question is insignificantly easy, because on a regular basis, you are solving far more important, far bigger challenges every second of every day. Like if somebody throws a ball at you, you're able to catch it very easily. But in that moment, in order to catch that ball in real time, you calculated on the basis of looking, when somebody throws a ball at you, the way you're able to calculate the velocity of the ball is by looking at the shadows and by looking at, the change in the appearance of how the ball is moving. So you're able to calculate the velocity in real time. You're able to calculate the angle of trajectory. You're able to calculate where it is going to be in space in some time. And you're able to calculate how your body needs to reach there. You're giving instructions to your legs and your whole body how to move. And you put your hand in the trajectory of the ball and you catch it. And you're doing all of that in less than a split second. And that is how capable your subconscious is. Now, on the other hand, like your self image, is something that determines how your subconscious works. Because I want you to understand that there's nothing that is actually difficult for your subconscious. Like everything is super easy for your subconscious. It is just that if your self image, like what do I mean? Like if your self image says that I'm very bad at maths, then your whole system will validate that image. And see, the way the study was done is that there was this one school where they wanted to conduct this study. So what they did, they conducted a test, and the test was not really relevant. What they did is at the end of the test, they chose a bunch of students at random, and they told all the class teachers and the students and the parents that these kids that they actually chose at random are actually very gifted and they have some hidden talents inside them which will blossom very soon. And it's like, and these kids are actually very very gifted. But this is not true. They the test had nothing to do with this. But the researchers told the teachers and the students and the parents that like these kids are actually very smart and they're very gifted. And when they said that, what that did is that changed the expectations of the teachers from the children, the expectations from the children from themselves, and the parents from those children. And because they started to treat themselves as gifted, and the teachers started to treat them that way, what happened is that their performance on all the exams started to go up. But actually, those kids were just chosen at random. And this is what I mean by the relationship between your self image and subconscious. Now, the thing is, with respect to the addictions, the reason I'm talking about this topic in freedom from addictions is that if your self image involves smoking, like if you have constantly been reinforcing that idea in your mind, like if you tell yourself, your friends, and everyone else that, hey, I am a smoker, then your subconscious will validate that self image and make sure that you continue those habits. And one of the ways in which you can free yourself from these counterproductive, destructive habits is by upgrading your self image and installing new patterns in yourself which serve you rather than which are detrimental to you. Now, maybe this we can do a little bit later after we clarify a bunch of the questions. Now, maybe this problem also we will come to a bit later. So yeah, first I want to open it up for questions and answers because I feel like I've shared many, many ideas. And after that, I will share the last two concepts with all of you. So yeah, first I would like to answer your questions. So go ahead, whoever has questions can ask so that I can create as much clarity as possible.
Mandira here. I'll go.
Yes, go ahead, Mandira.
Yeah, what I've noticed is I tend to smoke more when I'm with, friends. So like the friend is rolling a joint, I don't smoke weed, but my cigarettes go up. So why does that happen?
Right, very good question. Thank you so much for asking. So you see, the thing is, as human beings, we are hardwired to like for approval. Like we need our tribe members to like us because evolutionary speaking, uh, this was very very important for our survival. Like if you're a monkey in a forest and if your group members throw you out of the group, then you would end up a dead monkey. So you need the other monkeys to approve of you and like you, and when that happens, then some of them will watch out for you, some of them will protect you. And if there's like a predator, they'll raise the alarm and it's like you're part of the group and then you get to live. And so the reason this you're noticing that you start smoking more when you are in this group is because subconsciously, without thinking about it, you want their approval. You want to fit into the group. And if that's a group of smokers, you smoke more to be part of the in group rather than to be excluded from that group. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much. The next one is that I did quit for about 2.5 years or so when I started. So what does that say? Like people quit and they quit for 2 years, 1 year, some years, and then they get back. Why? What happens? The self-love goes off or goes away?
Right. Wonderful. Thank you for asking. Very good question. So you see, we are not static beings, it's like we are always changing. So the Mandira from today is very different from the Mandira 6 months ago and the Mandira from 2 years ago and 10 years ago and 5 years ago. We are always changing. And so when you quit, all that happened is like you reached a threshold where, like, given all the parameters in your life, like you felt that not smoking is the right way to go. And as the parameters of your life changed, your work changed, your environment changed, your connections changed, your friendships changed, the people in your life changed, your relationship statuses changed, everything changed. And there came a point where now smoking started to provide you more relief than negativity. And that is how you started again. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes, Brunda, go ahead.
Hey, hi. Thanks for the session. I just want to share why I was keen on this and if I can tell quickly about what I went through and other things. So younger days got into alcohol, smoking weed and everything. And then, I take it to the next level where, I go to extremes. I either don't do it or I do it to the fullest. And then I quit for 7 years. And then again, there came a situation. Again, I got into smoking, alcohol, and everything. I did for 3 years, and then I quit again for 3 years. And then recently, the good thing is I have an aversion for alcohol now. I got into smoking weed for almost 6 months. Very recently, like just 2 months back, I quit everything and I'm clean now. It is just that I don't know why I do this. Why I come out and then I go back. I because it's a question mark. I know something's there within me that I don't know, some subconscious fear or insecurity. I don't know. Uh, it's just that I don't want to go back again. Because life is beautiful. I am really high on life. See, I feel that if I'm high on weed, I go loud, and then again have to smoke up to feel high, which is very pseudo. I'm really not high, but now it's really beautiful high life, and I don't want to spoil this. You know, so I am introspecting why myself, and but I'm not able to find it an answer.
Cool, cool. So thank you so much for sharing that. One of the things that I keep emphasizing is that we don't necessarily need to dissect the problem so much, usually. Rather, it is much better if we are able to give all of our time, attention, energy to the solution, right? Rather than completely figuring out, why this happened, why am I doing this, why is this going on, this. Like if we let go of all of that, instead, if we give 100% of our attention and energy to the solution, right? And in that sense, the solution is how is it that you can constantly upgrade your life, right? So one of the things which I was wanting to share with all of you is also this idea of how to use our imagination, right? Like imagination is a far better use than willpower. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, let us say, as an example, if I want to stop smoking cigarettes, or if I want to stop eating donuts, or if I want to stop having coffee, anything, whatever it may be, whatever it is that I'm currently addicted to. Okay. Now, let us try and figure out what is the opposite of that. Like, what does it like, let's say if I'm having like a coffee addiction, like, why do I have a coffee addiction? Like, okay, fine, some energy, some whatever, it's like, so now what is the opposite of that? So maybe the opposite of having a coffee addiction is me living a very, very energetic life where, I'm like I'm able to like dance and I'm like really happy and like I have like a lot of energy and I see myself working on projects and doing things that make me really happy and excited. And so what I can do is I can use my imagination to see that picture in my free time. And I can constantly work on seeing the highest dream all of the time. Like, as much as possible, let me imagine the better future so that I have something to move towards. And constantly I can focus on raising the quality of my life. Like, let us say today is getting over. So by the end of the day, you can do like a review for today. Now, the point of that review is to not criticize yourself and make yourself feel worse at the end of it. No, it is so that you can have inspiration for imagining a better tomorrow. So before you go to bed, imagine how tomorrow can be far better than today. And constantly use imagination to upgrade your life. And this is a very, very powerful practice, trust me, because when we start actively utilizing our imagination, our reality actually follows very quickly. The problem is most people don't use their imagination at all, and they try to win completely with willpower. But you see, willpower is a very scarce resource. We end up running out of willpower very, very quickly. And what happens as you run out of willpower, then you will go back into your old habit patterns. And when you go back into the old habit patterns, then we judge and criticize ourselves very harshly. So instead of doing that, what we can do is that we can utilize our imagination, which is an unlimited resource. And the more you utilize your imagination, the more you have of it. And so what you can do is you can constantly imagine better situations and better outcomes for yourself. And very soon, as you keep doing that, like your reality will follow suit. Okay. Make sense, Brinda?
This is so wonderful. Thank you so much, Vishnu.
Absolutely, totally. I think it totally makes sense. I am looking back and I'm thinking, because it happened in like a pattern couple of times. Now I'm just focusing in the past and I'm like, will I go back again? But instead, I will look forward. I will use my imagination to go to become a better version of myself. To be. Thank you so much. I think this answered my question. Thank you.
My pleasure. Wonderful. In fact, I will tell you, there are so many studies which are done on this. So there was a study where there were three, like a group was divided into three segments. Okay. So let's say group A was told to practice every day, to throw a basketball into a hoop. So every day they had to practice for 30 days. Group B didn't have to do anything, and Group C had to imagine every day throwing the basketball into the hoop. And the interesting thing is that the third group, which just like they didn't have to actually throw a physical basketball into the hoop, their improvement in performance was at par, like almost at par with the group that practiced with a real basketball every day. Like that is
Wow.
the power of imagination. And this is the same thing that actually all of the top athletes use. In fact, like some of the golfing legends of the world, like they dedicate a huge amount of their, practice to imagining hitting perfect shots, to imagining the ball landing and going into the hole. Like they imagine the shot before they actually take it. So imagination is actually one of the biggest powers that we have. Okay. So Kalpana has asked a question. Is there a recording? I joined late. Yes, Kalpana, I can share the recording with you. I mean, I don't usually share it with everyone else because I encourage people to come and be a part of this. But with those of you who are already here, I'll be happy to share the recording. Okay. And Kalpana also says, thank you. Very great session. Thank you so much, Kalpana. I'm glad you have enjoyed this session. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, before that, there was another exercise which I wanted to do with all of you, but I think you guys can take your time and do this. What I want you to do is write down your story of self. Okay. So, for those of you who really want to take in the maximum benefit from this session, like you write down your story of self and you send it to me. After this conversation is done, you take your time, you take 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, whatever it is. And you write down like, just everything as like write in as much detail as you possibly can. And you send it to me. And after that, if you want, maybe we can get on a call or something, and I can help you understand ways in which you can actually upgrade your self-image and improving and upgrading your self-story is one of the most powerful things that you can do for your life. But that's something which is more personal. So for those of you who actually want to do this, I would say after this session is done, take half an hour, 40 minutes, and write down in as much detail as you possibly can your story of self and send it to me. And after that, I can help you upgrade that story. Okay. Now, how many of you? Okay. Sia is asking, can we have an example? It's very simple, Sia. It's like you just write your story, like, who is Sia, right? Like, if I were to talk about Vishnu, like, okay, I was born in an army family. My, like I studied in, like, it can be vast, but you just send whatever you feel like, as much as you can write and send, you send. Okay. And there's a reason.
Vishnu, not what I want to be, but the current reality.
Correct.
Sorry,
Correct. So whatever
current
it is,
reality, not what I want
yes,
my.
correct. Like just
Okay, got
like who is Brinda? Like, if you had to write your own story, like, like it could be 1 page long, it could be 2 pages long, however long you want it to be, whatever comes to your mind, just put it and then send it across.
Okay, got it.
All right. Cool. Wonderful. Hi, Prakash. You seem very happy. Happy to see
Man,
you.
yeah, happy to see you. Awesome. Your session is going wonderful, man. This session is makes sense for everyone life because I want to become already you know about me. I came out like more than a lot of things, you know. So I'm very happy for you only. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I'm glad you were here and I'm glad that you're
Yeah,
liking it.
yeah. Thank you so much. We'll meet soon. Thank you.
Definitely, brother. Okay. So Savi, Kalpana, Shivani, and Sia have said that they will write and send me the story, their life story. What about the rest of you? Okay, Brinda says I will send as well. Wonderful.
Yes. Yes,
Mandira
me
as
too.
well. All right, cool. Wonderful. Okay, cool. Then what about the rest of you? Any questions? Prakash says, I will send it too. Okay, and Swarna also says, me too. Wonderful. I see Nupur is also in this call. How are you doing, Nupur? Okay, Nupur will also send me a letter.
Yes, I will. You know a lot of my story, but I will write it down and send to you.
Definitely,
I'm
yes.
more of a silent listener on these calls. I try to, join whenever that I can, Vishnu.
Okay, lovely. So nice that
But
you're
very
here.
helpful. Thank you. Thanks,
Sure.
Vishnu.
You have any questions from today's conversation? Anything that I can create a bit more clarity on?
Um, just the few of these addictions, and I actually I was hearing most of it, but let's say things like alcohol. I mean, and I know somebody did bring this up. Like, why is it that one is, of course, it gives you a high and you feel good, and at that point of time when you're enjoying. But what happens really, and how is it that one can get rid of it totally? One is reduction and being in control, and once in a while. Second is you just want to give it up. How does one do that? If you can cover that, that'll be great.
Right. Wonderful question. So you see, the way we can completely let go of alcohol is by making our life so good that any alcohol consumption is a downgrade in life. Like when you realize that, see, because the reason why people actually drink alcohol is because drinking alcohol is some form of upgrade for them because their life is currently so low. Like you see,
Hmm.
so many people, like, what happens is that they're so stressed out in life, they're having like office pressure, home pressure, this, that, it's like they have so many problems in their life that when they
Hmm.
go to the bar, they go to a party and they get drunk for that evening, then they don't have to think about their life's problems. And
Hmm.
that one evening, they feel kind of good. Okay. And so what is happening is that imagine like visually, if I were to represent, like their life is existing at a very low baseline. And when they drink alcohol that day, like it gets a little bit better, they experience a high, then it comes back to that baseline. But the way to completely free ourselves from this alcohol consumption is imagine your life is so good that the day you drink alcohol, it actually drops. And then it goes
Hmm.
back to being that good. And then what happens is, like, if that happens like a couple of times, even if you drink alcohol like 2, 3, 4 times, and every time you realize that, what the hell, this sucks. Like, every time I drink, my life gets worse. That is how you would end up completely getting free from alcohol. Like, and that can happen because your life is so full of adventure. It is so full of like so many other amazing things. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, but at that point of time, it's not necessary that life feels horrible, right? At that point of time, it feels very good. You feel very good. You're in the moment. You are, I mean, more happy, and if, it could be that's what one feels, right?
Yes. See, I
It's not
understand.
that it's at that point of time you're feeling as if your life has gone low. In fact, you feel good and high and better.
Correct,
And of course,
which is
I mean,
what
not, I mean, let's we're not talking about, okay, if you have two drinks, not you're not going to get drunk. But let's say if you have 2, 3 drinks and you feel good and high and you're part of a party, one feels good about it. So what does one do?
see, if that is the case, if you're feeling good about it, then by all means you can have it, because I have nothing against alcohol.
I know, I know.
Right.
No,
See,
no.
okay, I
No,
can
what
look
I'm
at,
trying to say is, trying to follow from a health perspective also, and how, we've also been trying to, we love our body and eat cell. And of course, the consumption in itself, what you're putting in your body is something so horrible. So I'm coming from that point of view.
Vishnu, also Nupur, can I just my observation and my experience
Please.
whenever I've quit, uh, for me it has never been like have 3 drinks and enjoy. So mine is a different story. Um, so whenever after I've quit, what I've realized is if I actually love my current reality as is, current reality need not be happy, need not be wonderful, whatever it is, accepting or rather accepting my pain, my happiness, my mood, my situation and everything.